What you're about to see is surely confusing because there are things that only make sense in Singapore but you won't see anywhere else in the world. And as someone who just came to Singapore for the first time, I'm covering the top 15 craziest things that I've never seen before coming here, from the shocking laws that are okay around the world but illegal in Singapore to the horrible mistakes that almost ended my trip.
And I put them in the order of kind of okay, I guess, to the most horrifying things you'll ever see, starting with the first one.
And number 15 is I've never seen this many vending machines in my life. Seriously, if you told me there are more vending machines here than human beings, I would probably believe it. But that's not all, because a lot of the things being sold are things that you don't even know could be sold inside the vending machine before coming to Singapore, making me wonder if it's actually possible to live on only buying stuff from the vending machine.
I don't know how a country can have more vending machines than Japan.
But it only gets crazier down the list because number 14 is the crazy hot weather of Singapore. Even though my local friends warned me about this before coming here, but people that never set foot into Singapore might assume it's only like Malaysia or somewhere in Australia, which is horrible enough, but turns out it's completely on a different level of unbearable heat, as you can visibly see your skin being burned even after all the sunscreen. And from what I read, the weather is only getting hotter every year, to a point that coming here during rain season might literally be a life-saving tip.
When I asked my local friend what are the pros and cons of Singapore, he literally said Singapore has only pros and no cons, except for the weather.
And the next one may not be as deadly as the weather, but can still ruin your trip, which is number 13, no smoking in public. Now, Singapore is known for being really strict when it comes to keeping everything in order. So when I saw a bunch of people squeezing into a tiny room or a particular corner of a building, I legit thought there was something shady going on. But turns out, they're just looking for a place to smoke. So outside the usual signs telling you where not to smoke, there are also equally as many signs welcoming you to smoke.
I'm telling you, traveling with someone who smokes, where you have to constantly look for a smoking spot, is a pain you don't want to go through in Singapore.
But out of all the things you don't want to go through, the next one is so easy to break for any tourist, and that is number 12, no feeding pigeons or any wildlife in nature reserve. When I first read it on the internet, I thought they were joking, because why would the most advanced country in the world care about you feeding pigeons? But coming here and seeing all the signs really put a blow to my head on how serious it is. So if there's any mistake I don't want to make in Singapore, this would be one of the top ones. But on the other hand, I do see many people feeding stray cats, so maybe that's okay. But I can't say the same for number 11, which is eating and drinking on public transport like the MRT. Now, if it only stops there, you might think it's reasonable, because in countries like Australia and Malaysia, they also don't want you eating or drinking. But Singapore went a step further to even ban drinking water, because when you carry around any drink, they might spill onto the seats or other passengers. So unless you heard about it, it's so easy to break this rule, and I'm glad I didn't learn that the hard way.
And don't trust the map when it says Singapore is a small island, as getting around could take a couple of hours. So be sure to stay hydrated before you board the train.
But so far the list has been somewhat reasonable, and you might feel like nothing will ever surprise you in Singapore. But that's when things start to get really crazy. Starting with number 10, which is no chewing gums allowed, and which means no selling, buying, and bringing them in. But that's not it, because fireworks, e-cigarettes, and much other everyday stuff are also banned in Singapore. But the biggest problem is that there seems to be a double standard, since many of my Singaporean friends say they openly see tourists and even some of the locals doing it in public. But nobody seems to care, because not everyone can afford the super expensive local cigarette. But there's one thing that everyone will care about, it would be number 9, showering twice a day. And this was another thing I thought was a complete troll when I heard from the locals, that how many times you shower is somehow treated like a competition in Singapore. Like, I know everything is competitive in Singapore, but even this, as it turns out, most people showered once in the morning, then again in the evening, because A, you want to relax at the end of the day, and B, you don't want to be that one person that smells in your school or workplace.
If you Google how many times you shower in Singapore, you see a lot of discussion, including someone saying they never shower, or everyone saying I hope you're joking.
But what is totally not a joke is number 8. Seeing people literally use their wallets, phones, and sometimes even credit cards to keep a table. Because in hawker centers like this, you need to be quick, otherwise you'll never have a table. So most of the time, after finding one, people use the tissue packet like this to tell everyone the table is occupied. Then people start getting creative by using umbrellas, but putting your phone, credit card, and literal money on the table is where it becomes too much. I know Singapore is safe, but you don't have to scare us like that. Another thing you want to keep in mind when inside the hawker center is to clean up the table and return the tray and your plates after eating, which is number 7 on the list. The unspoken rules of hawker center that people, especially tourists, keep on breaking. Because if you don't clean up, others will have to do it for you, and that that's not very polite.
Now sometimes I even clean up for others just so they can use the table faster because I love all of you. Now can we click the like button?
Because the like button will never be as confusing as reading the signs in Singapore, as number 6 is the 4 official languages of Singapore. So unlike other places with only one official language, it's easy to see signs with a bunch of words from different languages all crammed into one, making it sometimes harder to read. As well as hearing people using multiple languages to order food from the same stall in the hawker center. And when your bus or train is about to stop, they also need to announce it multiple times using a couple of languages. But thanks to all that, something never seen before was born, and that is Singlish, where people mix words from different languages into a single sentence, with many people adding a lot at the end of it to add the emphasis, I guess.
Is that so though? Tell me in the comments lah.
But as the list goes on, you will start to question whether you should even visit Singapore or not, because number 5 is there are too many laws and nobody remembers all. And not only for the tourists, but it's also as confusing for the locals. As one of my friends here asked another friend if it's okay to play guitar in the park because there are too many laws and he's scared. One friend answered that it's okay unless it's too late at night or too early in the morning, so you don't disturb anyone. But my other friend said, playing guitar in public, you're going straight to jail. So to this day, when I see people playing music in public, I still worry about their safety. But not as much as the next one, which is number 4. You have to flush the toilet in Singapore as many times as necessary, especially in public bathrooms. But at first, I didn't take this seriously enough until I noticed they have officials checking it regularly to see if you follow the rule and flush.
My hotel literally has a sign that tells everyone to flush at least 2 times.
Now, I'll never dare stop flushing, the same way I absolutely dreaded when anyone in Singapore did this to me when we first met, and that is number 3, asking people how much money they make. Now, this didn't happen to me all the time, but my friend who was here for a trip noticed how the majority of the taxi drivers basically greeted him with, "How much money do you make?" To a point it felt like a job interview. And a quick Google search will tell you that asking people how much money they make right out the bat is quite common in a society as competitive as Singapore, especially for guys in dating, where many of my friends are bashed in the face with this before they even go on the first date. So for someone coming from a Western country like America, where everything is private, it's crazy for me to fathom how dating in Singapore completely hinges on how much money someone makes.
So you don't ask how much we make, and we don't ask how much you weigh, or how old are you.
But none of the things I mentioned above shock me as much as the next one, because number 2 is the crazy amount of cheap and affordable things to do or eat if you're traveling or living on the tight budget, which includes hotels, apartments, and restaurants, as I always saw Singapore as the most expensive country in the world, even more so than America based on how many Singaporeans are moving to America due to how things are cheaper. But coming here, I was surprised to find hotels below $50 a day and meals below $3 to $4, making traveling in Singapore shockingly affordable.
If a big noodle soup and the hawker center only costs $3, doesn't mean you could live in Singapore for under $10 a day?
But the next one is the craziest, even for the locals, because number 1 is you'll never find another place using the word can the way it's used in Singapore. If Singlish is confusing for foreigners, then this is confusing even for the people living here. Because one time a friend asked someone, "Can I borrow this?" and they literally said can. Okay, so is that a yes or a no? What is a can?
So I couldn't find any YouTube videos or info on Singlish outside of this one post on Reddit. But this is where it gets really confusing because can means doable. But can means doable? Yeah, so it's totally doable. But then you got cannot also can? Cannot also must can? What's wrong with you lah? Too confusing lah.
But it only gets even more out of control because next, we're checking out the worst mistakes you could possibly ever make when coming to Australia. But is it weirder than the ones you just saw in Singapore? Well, you'll have to click on the video to find out.